today, and I'm Stephen Hornby from Inkbrew Productions, and I'm also the National Playwright in Residence for LGBT History Month, which is how I came to be involved in this project. So I'm just going to talk to you for a few minutes about the overarching project that this exhibition is part of, and that's called The Day the World Came to Huddersfield. And then I'm going to hand you over. This is going to be quite a thing for you to be in the presence of someone who's been newly sainted. So I will hand you over to Saint Ajamu then, who will talk to you specifically about the exhibition and his personal reflections in terms of Pride 1981 and being a part of Huddersfield's queer history. I came to this project very much with the headset that in LGBT History Month we try and uncover hidden histories, particularly with a focus on working class lived experience and particularly with a focus not on London. So trying to find all the stories of which there are a wealth of fascinating, pivotal, interesting stories outside of London. And I heard a little bit about the fact that there had been this unusual occurrence where Pride hadn't happened in London in 1981. And it was the first time it hadn't happened in London and it had happened somewhere else. And then I was told that it was Huddersfield, which puzzled me, and I was keen to find out more about why Huddersfield and why at this point in 1981. So I found a bit more of the story about from Dr. Jeff Evans, who's one of the team with LGBT Plus History Month. And he got me interested in the story and curious to find out more. And so then I contacted Councillor Rob Walker, who was then had the cabinet responsibility for culture and environment, I think if I'm correct at that time. And I was given a very warm welcome and told to come here and discuss it, and partners would be convened and we'd see what we could do. And I was amazed with how readily people were willing to work with us and bring what they could to the table in terms of establishing partnerships and making this whole project work. Then, the next thing I was amazed by, that as I went to those agencies, so things like the local newspaper, things like the West Yorkshire Archive Service, and said, can I go through your records on Pride 1981? Can I see the photos from Pride 1981? There was nothing. There was literally not a single photo that anybody could show me. And I write about queer erasure and how we get written out of history, but mostly I've been talking about Georgian things, Victorian things, where I go and work with an archive and try and give queer readings of the past. But it was extraordinary to me to find that something from as little as 41 years ago had almost been entirely forgotten by the town in which it happened, when it was such an important part not just of local history, but of national history. So out of that, we kind of broadened the project out. And I thought, well, I can do some dramatisation, and I've got some great writers that I can work with. Abby Hines, Hayden Sutton, who's in one of the pictures, Peter Scott Presland, who's another one of the pictures, and we can work with our director here, Helen Parry, and we can create a dramatisation of that story. But the thing with theatre is that it is ephemeral. It disappears. So you have the magic of it in the moment, and then it's gone. And I thought, what can we do that will leave a more lasting way of remembering, a legacy that will be part of the town's history from that point onwards? And that's where I came up with the idea of doing some kind of exhibition, of commissioning someone to take some pictures. So that's all well and good while you're sat in your desk somewhere imagining this, but who the hell would I use to do it? Randomly then, that evening, I was sat at home with some friends. We were just watching our kind of a night of telly and a takeaway, and they said, watch this. And on came Ajamu's documentary, Me and My Penis. So I was interested from the title, and I watched a fantastic piece of work, getting men to explore their bodies in non-pornographic ways and rediscover their own relationship with their bodies and with their penis. And at the end of it, this amazing guy starts talking about being brought up in Huddersfield. And I was like, no. And I have this theory that there are always great queer angels that guide the work, and there are always these moments of synchronicity that happen. So I thought, well, look, this guy's just done a Channel 4 documentary. There's no way he's going to say yes to this commission. But I'll ask. I'll just be cheeky and put my hand up and say, would you consider it? And we'll get the no and we'll move on from there. And then remarkably, through a chain, I had to go up to Queer Britain and Joe Galliano, and then eventually we got in touch. And Ajamu was generous enough, amazing enough, to say yes. And he took to the project immediately. There wasn't even any kind of haggling on it. He's in his mind, he was just delighted to do it. And immediately then had these stories, which I'll leave him to talk to you about in terms of how the exhibition came into being and his own connections with Pride 1981 and ongoing connections with Huddersfield now. So I was delighted to have him on board. We then created a series of performances that were here. We recreated March, part of Pride 1981 March last weekend, marching along New Street, with remarkably no trouble at all. Everyone just seemed delighted to see us. And we, in February this year, we took over some premises on 8 New Street, and a couple of preview portraits, along with some amazing animation by John Sutcliffe at Hanging Boots Creative, was projected onto that space for a whole month, the whole of LGBT History Month. And West Yorkshire Archive Service have now discovered around 100 different images and records of Pride, which are all going to be part of their permanent collection. And the portraits that you see around you today, their home will end up being with the Huddersfield Art Gallery after this exhibition, and they'll be a part of their permanent collection as well. So hopefully we've enabled Huddersfield to remember its past a little more vividly than it had before. That's all I want to say about the day the world came to Huddersfield, and I'm delighted now to hand you over to our portrait artist and the newly sainted Ajamu. So I'm delighted to have you here.
I'm just going to say a few quick words. So thank you to Stephen. It's been a great project to be part of. And thank you to Becky, Curtis Council, and everyone who's been involved in this project. And thank you to the model, especially for just saying yes. So I'm trying to swear. It's partly this because my mum's seen it. However, at 17 years old, to see this march going through Huddersfield and the noise of the people on the march and the noise of the people watching the march, somebody has said to a 17-year-old black gay guy born and raised in this town, 40 plus years time, you will be talking about this moment. I would have gone, you. No way. And for me, and there's always something about re-engaging with one's history in the moment and then 40 plus years later, and that's why I said yes to this project. I'm trying to come back to Huddersfield and then to be part of this historical moment. And actually, that's what it is, because a lot of the history around LGBT excludes the north and other parts of the country. It is extremely non-essential, and so actually we are need to constantly unravel these multiple histories. And then the thing about this project, what I learned is that on the day you also had a black gay group that met in Huddersfield. Now then, most of us who are activists always start the major moment from 1987 with the first National Black Gamers Conference. I learned that in Huddersfield, 6 years predating that, this event took place in my hometown, Huddersfield. I was blown away. I thought, once again, there's always a sense of learning about one's history. There are these gaps. And then while I really enjoy being involved in this project, the work is very dark and very intense. In part, it's because that moment in '81 was also very intense. And so actually, not only did you have the Gay March, and you had the uprisings across the UK, you were stop and search of mainly black gay men across the UK. And then I'm 81, and you also had the rise of the National Front as well. So actually, lots of us were attacked on various levels via race and sexual tension. So then actually, so this work, and then hearing these stories from that moment, they brought me back to that moment as well. And they have this visceral engagement with the work. And I'm talking with John Addy, who I photographed as well, who I've not seen since 1983. So when meeting John Addy 30 years later, I was very tearful. It was actually a lot of those men that I then remembered from the Gemini Club, Kitty and Nick and Keith, but they are also no longer here. And so actually the archive isn't also about those who we remember and those who are not here as well. So actually I think it's very important that we remember those who are not here. So when actually I kind of want to say thank you to those men. And so my final point is, the one thing that I got away from the Gemini Club was how I felt welcomed in that moment in 81 as someone come to terms with my sexuality. And so I'm from those of you who know where the sports centre is, the old sports centre, I would stand there for months just looking into the doorway. And then this one night, March the 3rd, 1983, the Thursday night, I literally just ran across the road when the door opened, and then that's when I then kind of came out of such in this club. And then this club was felt safe. The music was problematic, not my kind of music. No, that's okay. That's okay. And so basically, I just want to say thank you again to Stephen and the team, and to John and to Kitty, and then all those folks who are not here. So thank you for making me feel welcomed in that space at the moment. And then that's what I take with me. And I have taken with me after 30 years as an activist doing this kind of work. So thank you very much. That's it, yeah.
Now I'd like to just hand over to the sisters in a moment of chaos to bless the exhibition.
Okay, well thank you very much everyone. We are the Transpennine Travelling Sisters. We're part of an order of 21st century queer nuns connected to the wider Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and Order of Perpetual Indulgence, and drawing on all those histories of queer nuns in the UK going back to the GLF activities in the early 70s. We're really delighted to be here today and invited to give the blessing to this absolutely beautiful exhibition. And we have actually just sainted Ajamu, and I just want to take a moment, it's okay, to just explain why we did that. We've sainted Ajamu. He is the patron saint of dark rooms. For groundbreaking work in black and queer photography and activism, for sex positivity, for archiving activities, for dark rooms dwelling and for accenting pleasure, for outstanding portraiture and a focus on the black male body, for deep thinking and inquiry, and as a son of Huddersfield who has travelled far and done great things. And it's an absolute delight to be here at the centre of the latest exhibition of work by Ajamu. And what I saw, I came and had a little sneak preview on Tuesday, and what I saw when I just looked at the pictures, it was so moving because there's such an intensity of focus on every individual sitter, and there's such a wealth of stories and journey in every face. And we know that what this archive is documenting is not only the past, but also setting up a legacy for the future. And this is something that I heard Ajamu say in an interview that he did with Matthew Williams, something along those lines. And when I look at the intensity of each face, I feel for every single person who comes to see that exhibition, it's a reminder of queer lives lived in Huddersfield back then and now and in the future. So without further ado from me, I'd just like to say, on behalf of Postulant Letters Play, myself, Sister Polly Amarosa, and Blessed Muslim Pilgrims, many blessings by the Holy Queer Power invested in us as 21st century nuns. We would like to bless this exhibition opening, bless all involved in the Day World Heritage Huddersfield project, and thank you so much for such fantastic work. thank you so much to Ajamu, same to Ajamu, Patron Centre Dark Group, for all your work over the years in bringing this stories. Thank you so much to everyone who has sat for these portraits and who is living those lives and carrying those legacies. And thank you all so much for being here. Blessings on you all. Blessings of the sparkle. Go forth, sing beautifully, be beautiful in yourself. Blessings of the sparkle.